Welcome back to the Income Generation. I'm David Scranton. I'm here with Jeff Small, and another good friend of the Income Generation, as well as a personal friend of mine and Jeff's, Matthew Johnson, president and owner of Johnson Wealth and Income Management, a retirement income store located in Iowa. So Matthew, let me ask you, we just got through Thanksgiving. What are you most grateful or thankful for?
Well, that's going to be a fairly lengthy list, but I would say the first thing is my children. I am blessed to be the father of four really amazing kids. I just got done going through a personal battle with COVID-19, so I'm very thankful for my health. I'm very empathetic now to those that have gone through it. And I am thankful, Dave, above all else, for the ability of being in the best job in this world. And that's the job of being able to help people and to help people succeed in retirement. It's the most fulfilling job or occupation that I could ever think of.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I know we have a second and a third here between Jeff and myself. So, okay, then let's put some meat on it right away. The stock market next year, 2021, we have all this printing of money, which long-term, scares people, but yet, even with Joe Biden being the obvious now, president-elect, with Janet Yellen coming in, who's a little bit more liberal in the Fed, it seems like the markets don't care. The markets are still happy about everything because they want that free money. So is 2021 going to be a pretty good stock market year?
Well, I think that we're an optimistic bunch, aren't we? And there's a lot of things that are supporting the market right now. And of course, just like you said, Janet Yellen, we've had experience with Janet Yellen. She is very dovish. But at the same time, I think that investors, or at least in my area, we're very realistic in acknowledging of what could happen. Janet Yellen, at least my recollection of her was that she was probably one of the biggest proponents of negative interest rates of all the different chairs. And I think that she would not necessarily be afraid to push that button if she wanted to. And yes, there is a lot of still good old fashioned values in this country. And they see the quantitative easing and the printing of money and the manipulation of interest rates. And they don't like what that ultimately leads to. But yet we've got a lot of investors that are okay with it because they know what it does to the stock market.
Well, on that note, MJ, you know what's going to happen with all that money printing? You know what sector or what segment of the stock market's been left behind the most this year? You guessed it. The value stock sector is the one that's going to probably lead out front and may even outperform the NASDAQ sector because those stocks have all hit their all-time peaks, and really there's going to be rotation back into value. What do you say about that?
I'd say that that's a very, very good observation, and I would totally agree with you. There's a lot of people, a lot of investors that think that finding growth stock is more difficult, say, than value stock. I would disagree. I would say that when you're investing in growth stock, you're basically looking at trends, you're chasing momentum. When you're looking at value stocks, though, value stocks represent a tremendous opportunity. But we have to be very careful because value stocks, they can carry the word value, but they can be a value trap. And what is a value stock? It's basically, the stock of a company that's been beaten down because of circumstances or whatever the case may be. And unless you're willing to put in the work, the effort, the due diligence that's necessary to make certain that the fundamentals of the company are very, very sound, you could be buying a stock of a company that's discounted. But if it's a value trap, it's just always going to sit there. So there's something to be said about working with a firm that does the due diligence to really find those hidden gems of value stock companies that we feel strongly are fundamentally sound. And when you buy them, the quote unquote recovery is actually turning into capital appreciation for you as the value stock investor.
And the most importantly is that for the income generation, value stocks tend to be the higher dividend payers.
I agree.
So although it's harder to execute, and we always say, don't try this at home, right? Because it is more difficult than just chasing growth, chasing momentum. The reality is it's the kind of stock, some might argue maybe the only kind of stock that's most appropriate if you're talking about any significant amount of our income generation members' retirement funds. And you're right. I mean, we must be right, because even Mark Faber said, right, in our interview just a moment ago, he said, you know what? He goes, tech stocks are going to underperform in 2021. Look at financials, look at oil, look at some of the value stuff. So hopefully we're right. But we need to take a quick commercial break. We got more coming up right here in just a moment. I'm David Scranton. I'm here with Jeff Small and Matthew Johnson, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Income Generation. We're here with my good friend and co-host Jeff Small, as well as our good friend Matthew Johnson, president and owner of Johnson Wealth and Income Management, a retirement income store located in Iowa. So this concept of a higher dividend paying value stock. So it sounds, Matthew, like you're saying it's not just as easy as buying these blue chip stocks, buying these dividend aristocrats and sitting back and collecting a dividend, because some of those are value traps. Some of those are going to continue to depreciate in value. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I think that there's a tremendous number of investors that have thought just because they're chasing something with a dividend that was going to lead to growth. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. That's the reason that the due diligence that I spoke of earlier is so very important and vital.
Yeah, cheap. You know, sometimes things are cheap for a reason. Sometimes they're cheap because, hey, they just knee-jerk reaction. They're out of favor with the markets, but they're worth more. And sometimes they're cheap because they're going to go even cheaper. They're just not worth a lot. Isn't that right, Jeff?
You know, they really are. And so it's almost impossible for an average investor to discern the value stocks. And so when you say the word value stocks, and a question mark immediately pops up over everybody's head. What in the world is a value stock? Well, there's value stocks in every segment and sector of the market. So value stocks tend to be the ones that have the best balance sheets, that are consumer-based, that people like to utilize on a consistent basis. And so what we look for are those stocks in those spaces that are producing the highest dividends, or a combination of dividends and appreciation. But you have to work with somebody like Matthew Johnson to know how to do that.
Yeah, like I say, don't try this at home. So, okay, we all want to be hopeful. We all want to be optimistic for next year. Matthew, you know, tell our viewers, what do you think they should be focusing on in order to maintain that optimism, that positivity into 2021?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, because this morning I did one of my YouTube videos, and I'm reflecting on the fact that wherever we are in life, we are where we are as a result of our decisions. And really, it's our responsibility. We need to take responsibility. You know, if your health isn't where it needs to be, if your spirituality isn't where it needs to be, if your business or your finances aren't where they need to be, then you need to take responsibility for that. And I'm a firm believer that, you know, not only as an investor do you want to be looking down the road. That's important, obviously, but you want to be also paying attention to what your immediate needs are today. And I think people need to pay attention to both, because the cost of living is continuing to go up as they're printing money. And we need to be looking for ways that are going to be moderately safer to get appreciation on our money. That's going to be those value stocks. And I think we need to also be focusing on the income. Who couldn't use more income? And here's the irony, Dave. The irony is that if you want more income from your money, you naturally have to reduce your risk. And I know that sounds so counterintuitive to so many investors, but it's the way that it's always been. And so I think we need to really be attentive going into 2021. What's my need for 2021? We're going to have crises. We're going to have things that change, but we need to be focused on what our money is doing and take responsibility for that.
Yeah, great point. Exactly, Jeff.
Yeah, it's you know, I think consumers, MJ, end up with this dilemma where they think that it's the advisor's responsibility, but first, you as a consumer or an investor or pre-retiree, you have to be the one that takes responsibility for your money. And then it's the advisor's job to educate you on what it is you want to accomplish. And that's the difference. And folks aren't willing to cross that line sometimes. But we know that in order to do the best job, that's what we have to do. Correct, MJ?
You know, it's funny because, MJ, you said something about the income you need, but I would say the heck with what you need. How about what you want? I literally was on the phone yesterday with somebody who had several $1 million who has some cars that he wants to fix up that he has, collectors. And he doesn't want to do it because he doesn't want to have to talk to his wife about why he's selling investments to do it. And I said, gosh, with the money you have, if you just earned 4% interest in dividends, you could fix up all your cars within a couple of years and have great collector's items. And you can do it without having to sell principal. That's a whole different conversation that you have when you go home. So 30 seconds. Matthew, what are your goals? What are your resolutions for 2021?
Well, it's probably going to be quite different than what you expect. So this year I was blessed. 2 years ago, I decided that every year my staff and I would take and we would provide Thanksgiving meals to families. And so the first year we started out, we helped 3 families, and we felt really great about that. And this year, 2020, we did 10 families. And so my staff and I, next year in 2021, we're going to support 21 families for Thanksgiving, which I think is better than so many other things that we could be doing.
Wow, I love that, Matthew. That's a great resolution for next year. Good for you. Thanks for being on, and God bless.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
You stay with us. We'll be right back here in a moment on The Income Generation.